Ambassador Zethrix had served the Galactic Council for 300 cycles. He had seen many strange things in his long life. He had watched wars destroy entire planets. He had studied over 12,000 different species from across the galaxy. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The meeting room was dark except for the blue light of the holographic display. 17 of the most powerful beings in the known universe sat in their chairs. They came from different worlds. They had different bodies. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that glowed in the dark. But today, they all shared the same expression. They were all afraid. The video on the display showed a planet called Earth. It was a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. The humans who lived there had only recently learned to travel between stars. They were new to space. They were supposed to be simple. They were supposed to be weak. The video showed a group of humans standing inside a flying machine high above the clouds. One by one, they jumped out of the machine. They fell toward the ground with nothing but thin fabric strapped to their backs. "What is happening?" asked Councilor Mrath. Her skin was usually a calm shade of purple, but now it flickered with bright flashes of fear. "Are they trying to kill themselves?" Zethrix looked at his notes. "No, Counselor. Our scientists have studied this behavior for many months. This activity is called skydiving. The humans do this because they enjoy it." "They enjoy falling to their deaths?" asked High Arbiter Cross. He was the largest being in the room. His body was covered in hard plates of natural armor. He had fought in many battles and had never shown fear. But now his voice was shaking. "They do not usually die," Zethrix explained. "The fabric on their backs opens up and slows their fall. They land safely on the ground. Then they climb back into the flying machine and do it again." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Councilor Mrath spoke again. "How many times do they do this?" "Some humans have jumped from flying machines over 10,000 times." Councilor Mrath fainted. 2 medical workers rushed to help her. Zethrix continued with his presentation. He showed videos of humans climbing up the sides of mountains using only their hands and feet. He showed humans swimming in deep water with large creatures that had many sharp teeth. He showed humans riding on boards down hills covered in frozen water at very high speeds. He showed humans fighting each other with their bare hands while crowds of other humans cheered and clapped. "This fighting," said High Arbiter Cross, "is this how they punish criminals?" "No, Arbiter. This is also recreation. They call it boxing or mixed martial arts. Humans train for many years to become good at hitting each other. The winners receive money and fame. Other humans pay to watch." "They pay money to watch other humans hurt each other?" "Yes, it is one of their most popular forms of entertainment." Cross stood up from his chair. His massive body blocked the light from the display. "I have heard enough. This species is clearly dangerous. We should destroy them before they spread further into the galaxy." Several other council members nodded in agreement. But Zethrix raised his hand. "I understand your fear, Arbiter. I share it. But I believe we need to learn more before we take any action. The humans do not know we have been watching them. They do not know we exist. I suggest we send a diplomatic team to meet them. We should try to understand why they behave this way." "You want to talk to them?" Cross asked. "After seeing what they do for fun?" "Yes, because what they do for fun might tell us something important about what they would do in war." The council voted. It was close, but in the end, they agreed to send a diplomatic team. Zethrix volunteered to lead it. He was curious about these strange creatures. He wanted to understand them. On the human colony world of New Montana, Commander Lisa Grant had no idea that aliens were watching her. She was having a normal day. In the morning, she had climbed the tall cliffs on the north side of the colony. The rocks were sharp and the wind was strong, but she reached the top in under 2 hours. It was a new personal record. In the afternoon, she taught a class to new soldiers. They learned how to handle explosives safely. Well, mostly safely. One young man named Tommy Reeves almost blew off his own hand, but Lisa stopped him just in time. She made him do 50 push-ups as punishment. Then she showed him the correct way to set up a detonator. Now it was evening. Lisa sat on the porch of her small house with a cold bottle of beer in her hand. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Danny Vega, sat next to her. They were watching old videos from Earth on a small screen. The videos showed people racing motorcycles around a dangerous road on an island. "I always wanted to try that," Danny said, pointing at the screen. "The Isle of Man race. You go around the whole island as fast as you can. Average speed is over 200 kilometers per hour. How many people die doing it?" Lisa asked. "A few every year. Sometimes more. Sounds fun." Danny laughed. He liked working for Commander Grant. She was tough but fair. She never asked her soldiers to do anything she would not do herself. And she was not afraid of anything. At least, nothing he had ever seen. His tablet made a small sound. He picked it up and read the message on the screen. "Huh," he said. "Got something from headquarters. Apparently, some aliens have been watching our colony. They want to send a diplomatic team to meet us." Lisa took a sip of her beer. "Aliens? Like actual aliens from another planet?" "That's what it says. The Galactic Council. Never heard of them, but I guess that makes sense since we never knew they existed until now. What do they want?" "To talk, I guess. Learn about us. The usual first contact stuff." Lisa thought about this for a moment. Meeting aliens was not something she had ever planned for, but it could not be that hard. Just be friendly, answer their questions, show them around. Simple. "Sure," she said. "Tell headquarters we'll host them. Should be interesting." She finished her beer and watched the motorcycles race around the island on the screen. A rider crashed at high speed and tumbled across the grass. The camera showed him standing up a moment later, waving to the crowd to show he was okay. The crowd cheered. "Crazy people," Danny said. "The best kind," Lisa replied. She had no idea that somewhere far above her planet, an alien ambassador was watching similar videos and preparing a report that would change the future of the entire galaxy. She had no idea that the simple things she did every day, the climbing, the explosives, the beer, the motorcycle videos, would soon be considered evidence of a terrifying truth. Humans were not afraid of danger. They loved it, and that made them the most frightening species the Galactic Council had ever discovered. The alien shuttle arrived at the human colony 3 days later. It was a beautiful ship, smooth and silver, shaped like a teardrop. It floated down from the sky without making any sound. The humans who gathered to watch thought it was the most graceful thing they had ever seen. The human shuttle that went up to collect the alien diplomats was not graceful at all. It was a bulky transport ship with patches of rust on its hull and an engine that made loud coughing sounds. The pilot was a young woman named Katie Martinez. She had short, dark hair, bright eyes, and a smile that never seemed to go away. "Welcome aboard," Katie said as the alien delegates entered her ship. There were 5 of them. Zethrix was the leader. He was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. Councilor Mrath came too, her purple skin still flickering nervously. High Arbiter Cross filled most of the cargo area with his massive armored body. 2 other delegates, smaller creatures covered in soft white fur, huddled together in a corner. "Please sit down and strap in," Katie said cheerfully. "We've got some weather between here and the surface, but don't worry. It's just a little storm." Zethrix looked at his instruments. The storm Katie mentioned registered as a Category 3 atmospheric disturbance. On his homeworld, No pilot would fly through such conditions. They would wait for the storm to pass or find another route. Katie flew straight into it. The shuttle shook and bounced through the clouds. Lightning flashed outside the windows. Rain hit the hull so hard it sounded like weapons fire. Katie hummed a little song to herself and adjusted the controls with relaxed, easy movements. "Sorry about the bumps," she called back to her passengers. "Hurricane season on Earth is way worse than this. One time I flew through a Category 5 storm just to win a bet. Lost the bet anyway because my landing was 3 seconds late. But it was fun." Council and Wrath lost consciousness again. The two furry delegates began writing messages to their families, certain they were about to die. Even High Arbiter Cross, the warrior who had fought in 100 battles, gripped his seat so hard that the metal bent under his fingers. Only Zethrix kept his eyes open. He watched Katie carefully. She was not scared at all. She was not pretending to be brave. She was genuinely enjoying herself. The worse the storm got, the bigger her smile became. "There we go," Katie said as the shuttle burst through the bottom of the clouds. "Smooth sailing from here. Welcome to New Montana." The colony spread out below them. It was a small settlement of maybe 5,000 humans, built in a valley between tall mountains. The buildings were simple and practical. Farms and factories surrounded the central living areas. Everything looked peaceful and ordinary. Commander Lisa Grant was waiting at the landing pad with Lieutenant Danny Vega. She wore her dress uniform, which she clearly found uncomfortable. She kept pulling at the collar. "Welcome to New Montana," Lisa said as the aliens exited the shuttle. "I'm Commander Grant. This is Lieutenant Vega. We're honored to have you here." Zethrix tried to respond, but he was having trouble speaking. His body was still shaking from the flight. Council and Wrath needed help from 2 medical assistants. High Arbiter Cross looked like he might be sick. "Rough flight?" Lisa asked. Zethrix finally found his voice. "Your pilot is either mentally unwell or actively trying to murder her passengers." Lisa laughed. It was a warm, friendly sound. "Katie? She's actually our safest pilot. You should see what the experimental flight team does. Last week, they flew a shuttle through a canyon upside down just to see if they could. Why would anyone do that? Because it's fun. And also because they wanted to prove the stabilizers could handle it. But mostly because it's fun." The tour of the colony began. Lisa walked them through the main areas, explaining what each building was used for. The aliens tried to pay attention, but they kept getting distracted by the strange things the humans were doing. In one area, a group of humans were punching and kicking padded bags. Some were fighting each other, throwing punches and wrestling on the ground. A trainer walked among them, shouting encouragement. "That's our combat training facility," Lisa explained. "Everyone in the colony learns basic self-defense. It's good exercise, and you never know when you might need it." "They fight each other for exercise?" Zethrix asked. "Sure. It's one of the most popular activities here. We have tournaments every month. Danny won the last one." "Show them your trophy, Danny." Danny pulled out his tablet and showed them a picture of himself holding a small golden statue. His face in the picture was covered in bruises and one of his eyes was swollen shut. But he was smiling broadly. "Hurt like hell, but totally worth it," Danny said proudly. They walked past a field where children were playing a game. 2 teams stood on opposite sides of the field, throwing red rubber balls at each other. When a ball hit someone, that person had to sit down. The children screamed and laughed as they dodged and threw. "What is this?" Councilor Mrath asked. Her skin had stopped flickering, but she still looked nervous. "Dodgeball," Lisa said. "We start teaching kids early. Hand-eye coordination, teamwork, learning to handle physical contact. Important skills. You teach children to throw objects at each other. They're just rubber balls. Nobody gets really hurt." Well, sometimes someone gets a bloody nose, but kids heal fast. The two furry delegates exchanged horrified looks. On their world, children were kept in protective environments until they reached adulthood. The idea of deliberately exposing them to physical impact was unthinkable. Near the edge of the colony, they found a large group of humans gathered around an open fire. The flames were tall and bright. Smoke rose into the air. The humans were cooking large pieces of meat over the flames, turning them with long metal tools. "What is happening here?" Zephrix asked. His people had stopped using open fire thousands of years ago. It was too dangerous, too unpredictable. "Barbecue," Lisa said. "It's a social thing. You cook food over fire, drink some beer, talk with friends. We do it every weekend when the weather is nice. The smoke contains carcinogenic compounds. Yeah, that's what makes it taste good." A human named George Brennan walked over with a plate of food. He was an older man with gray hair and strong hands. "Ambassador, you have to try this. My own special recipe. The secret is I soak the meat in beer for 2 days before cooking." Zephrix looked at the charred piece of meat. Every part of his training told him it was dangerous. But he was a diplomat. He was supposed to build bridges between cultures. So he took a small bite. It was delicious. Smoky and tender and full of flavor. He understood immediately why humans would risk carcinogenic compounds for this taste. "This is very good," he admitted. George grinned. "Told you. Here, let me get you some potato salad. And maybe a beer. You drink beer? You should drink beer. Life's too short not to drink beer." As the day went on, Zephrix learned about many other human activities. Camping, where they voluntarily left their safe homes to sleep in the wilderness. Hunting, where they tracked and killed wild animals using primitive weapons. Swimming, where they entered large bodies of water despite not being able to breathe in water. Skiing, where they slid down mountains on thin pieces of wood at high speeds. Everything the humans did seemed designed to put them in danger. And everything they did with smiles on their faces. By the end of the day, Zephrix was more confused than ever. These creatures should have died out long ago. Their recreational activities alone should have caused their extinction. Yet here they were, thriving, expanding across the stars. He needed to understand why. He needed to understand what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. The answer would come sooner than he expected. And it would change everything he thought he knew about courage, about fear, and about what it truly meant to be alive. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the first in 40 cycles. 117 species representatives gathered in the Great Hall, summoned by urgent messages that promised information of the highest importance. Some had traveled for days to attend. Others had arrived through quantum communication links, their holographic forms shimmering in designated seats. All of them wanted to know what could be so important. Zephrix stood at the center of the chamber, alone under the bright lights. He looked smaller than usual, tired from his journey and from the weight of what he had to say. But his voice was steady when he began to speak. "Fellow council members, I have spent 3 weeks among the humans. I have observed their daily activities. I have studied their customs and traditions. I have witnessed events that have fundamentally changed my understanding of sentient life." He activated the holographic display. Images appeared above him, floating in the air for all to see. First, let me summarize what humans do for recreation. The display showed humans jumping from aircraft without any guarantee of survival. Humans climbing vertical rock faces with only their hands and feet. Humans riding motorcycles at speeds that would be instantly fatal if anything went wrong. Humans swimming in waters filled with predators. Humans fighting each other with fists and feet while crowds cheered. "They call this extreme sports," Zephrix explained. "But this is only the beginning. New images appeared. Humans eating foods that had been exposed to open flame and carcinogenic smoke. Humans consuming plants that caused burning pain in their mouths, something they called spicy food, and then competing to see who could eat the most. Humans drinking liquids that damaged their internal organs over time. Humans staying awake for days at a time to play electronic games or complete work projects. These are considered normal behaviors in human society, Zethric said. They do not see these activities as dangerous. They see them as enjoyable, as necessary, as fundamental parts of what it means to be alive. Councilor Mrath raised her hand. Her skin was flickering rapidly between purple and white, a sign of extreme distress. Ambassador, this cannot be accurate. No species could survive with such reckless behavior patterns. They would have destroyed themselves long ago. That is what I believed as well, Counselor. I was wrong. Zethric changed the display again. Now it showed the mining accident at New Montana, the collapsed tunnels, the rescue teams entering despite the terrible odds. Commander Grant pulling survivors from the rubble with her bare hands. When the humans face danger, they do not calculate acceptable losses the way we do. They do not retreat and wait for safer conditions. They run toward the danger. They risk their own lives to save others, even when the probability of success is low. This is foolish, said High Arbiter Cross. This is wasteful of resources and personnel. That is what I thought as well, Arbiter. But then I saw the results. The display showed the end of the rescue operation. 37 miners, all alive. 6 rescue workers injured. None killed. The celebration afterward, the humans embracing and crying with joy. They saved everyone, Zethric said. Against all odds, against all reasonable predictions, they saved everyone. And they did it because they refused to accept that some people could be left behind. He paused, letting the council absorb this information. I have spent many hours trying to understand why humans behave this way. Why do they seek out danger for recreation? Why do they risk their lives for others? What is wrong with their minds that makes them so different from every other species we have studied? He turned off the display. The chamber went dark, except for the soft glow of bioluminescent delegates and holographic projections. I have come to a conclusion. There is nothing wrong with human minds. Their behavior is not a defect. It is a feature. Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was not what anyone expected. Consider, Zethric continued, what danger means to us. When we encounter a threat, our bodies enter a state of preservation. Our minds focus entirely on survival. We run away. We hide. We calculate the safest path and take it. This is logical. This is reasonable. This is how intelligent beings are supposed to behave. He began walking slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with delegates from different species. But humans are different. When humans encounter danger, they do feel fear. I have confirmed this through biological scans. Their bodies produce the same stress chemicals that ours do. Their hearts beat faster. Their muscles tense. They are afraid. Then why do they not flee? Asked one of the furry delegates. Because fear is not the only thing they feel. They also feel something else. Something we do not have a proper word for in most of our languages. The closest translation might be purpose or perhaps love. When humans see someone in danger, they do not only think about their own survival. They think about the other person. They think about what will happen if they do not help. Zethric stopped in the center of the chamber again. And here is the remarkable thing. For humans, that feeling is stronger than fear. Not always. Not in every human. But in enough of them that it defines their entire culture. They celebrate the people who overcome fear to help others. They tell stories about them. They build monuments to them. They call them heroes. This is still irrational, Councilor Mrath said. Heroes are simply those who made poor risk calculations and happened to survive. That is one way to see it, counselor. But consider this. The humans have only been traveling through space for a short time. Yet, in that time, they have established 37 colony worlds. They have survived disasters that would have destroyed other young species. When the colony on Tau Ceti suffered a plague, humans from other worlds volunteered to bring supplies, knowing they might catch the disease themselves. When the settlement on Kepler 442b was attacked by hostile wildlife, farmers and teachers picked up weapons and fought alongside soldiers. They lost people, but they held their ground. They never gave up. He pulled up one final display. It showed a chart of human population growth compared to other species at the same stage of development. Humans are growing faster than any species in recorded history. Not because they have better technology. Not because they have superior resources. They are growing because when things go wrong, they do not abandon their colonies. They do not write off their losses. They fight for every person, every settlement, every piece of ground they have claimed. The chamber was silent. 117 species representatives stared at the chart, trying to understand what it meant. My recommendation to this council, Zethric said, is that we reclassify humanity immediately. They are not a Category 7 emerging species. They are not even a Category 3 moderate threat. I believe they should be classified as Category 1, existential consideration. You think they will attack us? Asked High Arbiter Cross. No, Arbiter. I do not think humans will attack us, at least not without cause. They are not aggressive toward those who treat them with respect. But I think that if we ever give them a reason to fight us, we will lose. Not because their weapons are better. Not because their numbers are greater. We will lose because they will never stop. They will never surrender. They will never calculate that the losses are too high and withdraw. They will keep fighting until every last one of them is dead. He looked around the chamber one more time, or until we are. The vote was held the next day. The motion to reclassify humanity passed with 93 votes in favor, 20 against, and 4 abstaining. A new diplomatic initiative was approved. The Galactic Council would reach out to humanity not as observers, but as potential allies, because Zethrics had helped them understand a simple truth. In a galaxy full of species that feared death, the humans feared something else entirely. They feared a life without meaning, a life without connection, a life without something worth dying for. And that made them the most dangerous species the Council had ever encountered. But perhaps, if they were careful, it could also make them the greatest allies the Council had ever known. The question now was whether the Council could prove to humanity that their friendship was worth having. Zethrics thought about Commander Grant, about Danny Vega, about Katie the pilot who flew through storms for fun, and George the cook who defended his tomatoes with a rake. He thought about the miners who went into the dark every day and the rescue workers who went after them when things went wrong. He thought about what it might mean to have those people standing beside you instead of against you. And for the first time in his long life, Zethrics felt something he had never felt before. He felt hope. The diplomatic visit was going well. 3 days had passed since the aliens arrived at New Montana. Zethrics had filled 17 reports with observations about human behavior. He had watched them eat dangerous food, play dangerous games, and tell stories about dangerous adventures from their past. He was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, these creatures were not as terrifying as he first believed. They were strange, yes. Reckless, certainly. But perhaps they were not a threat to the galaxy. Then the accident happened. It was early morning when the alarm sounded. A loud horn blasted across the colony, waking everyone from their sleep. Red lights flashed on every building. Lisa Grant was out of bed and running toward the command center before the first horn stopped. "What's happening?" she demanded as she burst through the door. A young officer named Paula Reed looked up from her console. Her face was pale. "Mining accident, Commander. Tunnel collapse in Section 7. We've got people trapped down there." "How many?" 37 confirmed. "Maybe more. The seismic sensors are picking up unstable conditions throughout the area. The whole section could come down at any moment." Lisa was already pulling on her gear. "Get rescue teams to the mine entrance. Full equipment. Medical support on standby. Commander, the stability readings are terrible. Probability of successful rescue is only 32%. Probability of additional casualties among rescue personnel is over 60%. Lisa stopped and looked at Paula. Her eyes were hard but not angry. "Paula, I don't need probabilities. I need rescue teams. Now." Within an hour, the mine entrance was crowded with volunteers. Not soldiers following orders. Not workers doing their jobs. Volunteers. People who had heard about the accident and come running to help. Cooks, farmers, teachers, mechanics. Men and women. Young and old. All of them ready to go down into the dark and bring their neighbors home. Zethric stood at the edge of the crowd, watching. He did not understand what he was seeing. On his world, when there was an accident with such low probability of success, they calculated the acceptable losses. They waited for conditions to improve. They did not send more people to die. "Ambassador," he said to himself, recording his thoughts for his report, "the humans are preparing to enter the collapsed mine. They know the risks. Their own instruments tell them the chances of success are low and the chances of death are high. They are going anyway." Lisa walked past him, adjusting her helmet. She carried a large pack of equipment on her back and a cutting tool in her hands. "Commander Grant," Zethric called out. "May I ask what you are doing?" "Going to get my people out. But the probability of successful rescue is only 32%. The probability that you yourself will be killed is significant." Lisa stopped. She turned to look at the alien ambassador. For a moment, she seemed confused, as if he had asked a question that made no sense. "Those are my people down there," she said. 37 men and women who woke up this morning thinking it would be a normal day. They have families waiting for them. Kids who want their parents to come home. I'm not going to stand here and calculate odds while they run out of air. But if you die, the colony loses its commander. Then Danny takes over. He's good. Better than me in some ways. The colony will be fine. This is not logical." Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision that scared them, but who was going to do it anyway. "You're right, Ambassador. It's not logical. It's human." She walked into the mine. 63 other volunteers followed her. The next 18 hours were the longest of Zethric's life. He stayed at the surface, watching the rescue operation on monitors. He saw the humans crawling through collapsed tunnels, moving rocks by hand when machines could not fit. He saw them creating support structures from whatever materials they could find. He saw them taking turns, one team going down while another rested, an endless cycle of courage and determination. Lieutenant Danny Vega was in the second rescue team. 4 hours into the operation, a secondary collapse brought down a wall of rock. Danny was caught in the fall. His arm snapped. 3 of his ribs cracked. Medical staff at the surface ordered him to evacuate. He refused. "I can still work," Danny said through gritted teeth. "My legs are fine. My other arm is fine. Patch me up and send me back down." "Lieutenant, you have serious injuries. You need proper medical care. Those people need me more than I need a hospital. Tape up my ribs and give me something for the pain. I'm going back in. They taped up his ribs. They gave him something for the pain. He went back in. One by one, the trapped miners were found and brought to the surface. Some were injured. Some were unconscious. All were alive. The rescue teams dug through rock and dirt and broken machinery, following the sounds of voices and the signals from emergency beacons. Commander Grant personally pulled 11 survivors from the deepest part of the collapse. The tunnel she was in was so unstable that it shook with every step. Rocks fell from the ceiling around her. But she did not stop. She did not slow down. She kept going until every single person was outdot at hour 17. The last miner was brought to the surface. His name was Henry Doyle, a young man on his first week of work. He was unconscious but breathing. When the medical team confirmed he was stable, a cheer went up from the crowd. 30-7 miners rescued. All alive. 6 rescue workers injured, including Danny Vega. None killed. Zethrix watched Commander Grant emerge from the mine. She was covered in dirt and dust. Her face was bruised. Her hands were bleeding. But she was smiling. The crowd surrounded her, hugging her, thanking her, crying and laughing at the same time. Someone handed her a bottle of water. Someone else handed her a beer. She drank both. "Good work, everyone," she said. Her voice was rough from dust and exhaustion. "Let's get cleaned up. Barbecue at my place tonight. We've got something to celebrate." The celebration lasted until dawn. Humans gathered around fires, cooking food and telling stories about the rescue. They sang songs. They hugged each other. They cried for the fear they had felt and laughed for the joy of survival. Zethrix sat apart from the celebration, writing his report. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something he could not name, something he had never felt before. "Ambassador?" He looked up. Commander Grant stood before him, holding 2 bottles of beer. She sat down next to him and offered one. "You looked like you needed a drink. I do not know if my body can process your alcohol. Only one way to find out." Zethrix took the bottle. He drank. The liquid burned his throat but warmed his stomach. It was not unpleasant. "Commander, I must ask you something." "Go ahead. Why did you do it?" "You knew the odds. You knew you might die. Why did you go into that mine?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She looked up at the stars, thinking. "When I was a kid," she said, "my father was a firefighter. He ran into burning buildings for a living. One time I asked him why. Why would anyone choose to do something so dangerous? You know what he told me? What? He said that fear is not the enemy. Fear is just your body telling you that something matters. If you never feel fear, you never care about anything. The trick is not to eliminate fear. The trick is to find something that matters more than the fear. Something worth running toward, even when every part of you wants to run away." She took a long drink from her beer. "Those miners mattered more than my fear. Simple as that." Zethrix looked at her. In the firelight, she did not look like a terrifying alien warrior. She looked tired. She looked human. "I think," he said slowly, "I am beginning to understand your species. Yeah? You are not fearless. You feel fear just like everyone else. But you do not let fear make your decisions. You let love make your decisions. Love for your people, your family, your community." Lisa smiled. "Pretty good summary, Ambassador. It is still completely insane. Probably. But it works for us." They sat together in silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. Around them, humans celebrated life in the shadow of death, finding joy in survival and hope in tomorrow. Zeth, single quotes Rix, had come to study these creatures. He had expected to find monsters. Instead, he had found something far more complicated and far more wonderful. He had found people who cared so much about each other that they would walk into danger, not despite their fear, but because of it. And that, he realized, made them the most remarkable species he had ever encountered. 3 cycles passed after Zethryx delivered his report to the Galactic Council. In that time, many things changed. New committees were formed. New policies were written. New ambassadors were trained in human customs and behaviors. The Council prepared itself to meet humanity not as a threat to be managed, but as a potential partner in the long journey of galactic civilization. Ambassador Prella of the Crystalline Hegemony was chosen to lead the first official friendship delegation. She was a patient being, known for her calm demeanor and her ability to understand different perspectives. Her body was made of living crystal that shifted colors with her emotions. Right now, as her ship approached Earth, her crystals were flickering between blue and green, a sign of nervous anticipation. She carried 2 things with her. The first was a formal invitation from the Galactic Council, asking humanity to join as a full member species with all the rights and responsibilities that came with such status. The second was a personal message from Zethryx, recorded in a small crystal that would project his image when activated. The message was addressed to Commander Lisa Grant. Earth was beautiful from space. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, broken by patches of brown and green land. White clouds swirled in patterns across the atmosphere. Small lights sparkled on the night side, showing where humans had built their cities. Prella had studied this world from reports and recordings. She knew about its violent history, its unpredictable weather, and its humans who seemed to invite danger into every aspect of their lives. But seeing it in person was different. It looked peaceful. It looked like home. The delegation landed in a coastal city called San Diego. Prella had asked to meet Commander Grant in person, and Grant had chosen this location. The ambassador was curious why she understood when she saw the ocean. Massive walls of water rose up from the sea and crashed against the shore with tremendous force. The sound was like thunder that never stopped. The energy contained in each wave could have destroyed a small building. And scattered across those waves, riding them toward the beach, were humans. They stood on thin boards, balancing with their arms spread wide, moving with the water as if they were part of it. Some fell and disappeared beneath the surface, only to emerge moments later, laughing and swimming back out to try again. Others rode their waves all the way to the sand, jumping off at the last moment with expressions of pure joy. "That is called surfing," said a voice beside her. Prella turned to find Commander Grant approaching. The human woman looked different from the recordings. Older somehow, though only a few cycles had passed. There were more lines around her eyes. But her smile was the same, warm and genuine. "Commander Grant, thank you for meeting me. Thanks for coming all this way. I thought you might like to see some real human recreation. This is pretty tame by our standards, but it's one of my favorites." They stood together watching the surfers for a while. Prella found herself fascinated by the rhythm of the waves, the way the humans predicted their movement and positioned themselves at exactly the right moment to catch them. "It looks dangerous," she said. "It can be. People drown sometimes, get hit by their boards, run into each other. But that's part of what makes it feel real, you know? If there was no risk, it wouldn't mean anything." Prella did not entirely understand, but she was beginning to. The humans did not seek danger for its own sake. They sought experiences that made them feel alive. And for some reason, the possibility of failure or injury made success feel more meaningful. "I have something for you," Prella said. She held out the message crystal. From Ambassador Zethryx. Lisa took the crystal carefully. It was warm in her hand, pulsing with soft light. She activated it, and a holographic image of Zethryx appeared between them. "Commander Grant," the recording began. I have thought often about our time together and about the rescue operation I witnessed. I still do not fully understand your species, and I suspect I never will. But I have come to understand something important. The hologram flickered slightly as it continued. Among my people, we have a saying. The wise being knows the boundaries of acceptable risk. I always believed this to be fundamental wisdom. I believed that intelligence meant calculating probabilities and making rational choices based on likely outcomes. I believed that emotions like love and loyalty were inefficient, that they clouded judgment and led to poor decisions. Lisa watched the recording with quiet attention. Behind her, the waves continued their endless rhythm. You taught me that I was wrong. You taught me that humans do not calculate risk the same way we do because you have calculated something else entirely. You have decided that a life lived without courage, without connection, without the willingness to fight for what matters, is no life at all. The hologram smiled. It was a strange expression on Zethric's face, borrowed from the humans he had studied. Your recreational dangers are not evidence of insanity. They are evidence that you have chosen to be truly alive. You climb mountains not despite the danger, but because the danger makes reaching the top meaningful. You jump from aircraft not because you want to die, but because you want to feel what it means to survive. You run into collapsed mines not because you are foolish, but because the people trapped inside matter more to you than your own safety. Lisa felt something tighten in her chest. She thought about her father, the firefighter who ran into burning buildings. She thought about Danny, who kept working with broken ribs because people needed him. She thought about all the humans across all the colony worlds who did the same kinds of things every day. The Galactic Council fears humanity because you cannot be predicted. You cannot be controlled. You cannot be made to accept what we consider reasonable limits. You will always push further, climb higher, dive deeper. You will always find new ways to test yourselves against the universe. The hologram paused, as if gathering its thoughts. I do not fear you, Commander. I admire you. I have learned from you. And I hope that when humanity takes its place among the stars, you will remember that you have at least one friend who understands your beautiful madness. The recording shifted, showing Zethrix standing a little taller. The invitation Ambassador Prella carries is genuine. The Galactic Council wants humanity as an ally. But more than that, I want you to know that you have changed how at least one being in this galaxy sees the universe. You have taught me that safety is not the same as living. That risk is not the same as foolishness. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to run away from danger, but to run toward it. Because something on the other side matters more than your fear. The hologram smiled one more time. If you ever want to teach me to surf, Commander, I would be honored to learn. Though I suspect I may need many years to prepare mentally. The recording ended. The crystal went dark. Lisa stood in silence for a long moment. Around her, the world continued as it always had. Waves crashed. Surfers rode. Children played in the sand. Life went on, beautiful and dangerous and full of meaning. That was a good message, she said finally. Prella nodded. He speaks highly of you. He told the council that meeting you changed his understanding of what it means to be alive. That's a lot of pressure. Is it? Lisa laughed. No, not really. Humans are used to pressure. We kind of thrive on it. She looked out at the ocean again. A new set of waves was building on the horizon. They would be here in a few minutes, perfect for riding. Ambassador Prella, I accept your council's invitation. Humanity is honored to join as full members. But I have one condition. What is that? Tell Zethrix he's invited to San Diego anytime. And tell him not to worry about the surfing. I'll start him on the small waves. We'll work up from there. Prella's crystals shifted to a warm golden color, a sign of happiness. I will tell him. I believe he will be pleased. They stood together watching the waves. Behind them, more humans were gathering on the beach, carrying boards, waxing surfaces, stretching muscles. They talked and laughed with each other, unaware that they were being observed by an alien ambassador, unaware that their simple afternoon activity was the kind of thing that made the Galactic Council lose sleep at night. "Can I ask you something?" Prella said. "Sure. Are you ever afraid? When you climb mountains, or jump from aircraft, or run into collapsing mines, do you ever feel fear?" Lisa thought about the question. She thought about all the times her heart had pounded, her hands had shaken, her mind had screamed at her to run away. "All the time," she said. "I'm afraid all the time. Every human is. We just don't let it stop us. Why not?" Lisa picked up a surfboard that was leaning against a nearby post. It was old and worn, marked with scratches from years of use. She ran her hand along its surface like it was an old friend, because there's always something on the other side of the fear that's worth reaching. A view from a mountaintop, a person trapped in a mine, a perfect wave that you ride all the way to the shore. She looked at Prella with eyes that held both sadness and joy. The eyes of someone who had lost things and found things and understood that both were part of being alive. Fear is just the price of admission, Ambassador. Pay it, and you get to experience everything the universe has to offer. Refuse to pay it, and you spend your whole life watching from the sidelines. She walked toward the water, board under her arm,